Throwing knives. A brand new ordnance in Borderlands 4, loved by the community mainly due to the discovery of the God Knife. But I enjoyed them so much I decided to challenge myself to complete my first ever playthrough using them. This is how I completed Borderlands 4 using only throwing knives. So starting off, I do have two things to say. The first one is I am doing it on hard mode, and the second thing is no, I'm not cheating instantly. I do have to skip the prologue for an actual reason. Basically, as far as I'm aware, I don't think it's possible to get a throw knife in it unless you have a second person drop you one, and clearly I have no friends since I'm doing a throw knife challenge in Borderlands 4, so you know, this is a solo challenge kind of thing. But after skipping the prologue, you are going to get a throwing knife straight away and one skill point. For now, I'm going to put it in the blue tree, but when I have to start, you know, optimizing my build a little bit more, this is going to change. Now, let's get into it. So we have the initial Ripper camp, the first real test of the throwing knives. It's going to be a kill, a miss, and a miss. That's how you know it's going to be a good video. I'm just joking. I could have cut that out, but that's no fun. And I am that guy. I did blame it on sensitivity straight away, but to be fair, it did help me, since you know, using throwing knives is going to take a lot more accuracy than just spraying praying with guns, so it does make a little bit of sense. But one thing I want to quickly go over is I want this video to be more condensed, more entertaining than my previous stuff. It did kind of feel a little bit slow, and watching these beginning clips while editing, they hurt my soul. Trust me, when I get used to it, I do get a lot faster with my decision making and a lot better with my accuracy, and most of the start of the game is actually just a lot of running around, so yeah, it's a lot better like this. But we are at Splash Zone, and as you can see, we run into the first major challenge. I didn't think of it because I started this run on a whim, but if you go down, you can't use ordnances, so you just have to take the loss and reset pretty much. And this is the worst part of the challenge, especially during boss fights. Rep kit management is going to be key, and honestly I hate hiding. This isn't a crouch behind a box simulator, it's just ridiculously boring. We live life on the edge here, so movement tech is going to be a major part of the run when beating Sir Splash and picking up the glide pack at least. Just going to use those dashes and dodges all the time to try and avoid as much damage as possible. But I do find out it's much easier said than done. It does take me a few tries, but I did find this spot which basically lets me take him down since he's stuck scuttling around on his little island and the barriers on the right are blocking the attacks from the other enemies. The only things that can hit me are obviously that elemental attack and his mace, which you can see is flying at me now. Yeah, just enjoy this little fragment of scheming, because as it turns out, and I'm making this up out of thin air, 90% of the main boss fights in this game are in arenas, so you can't really do things like this, kind of just have to take him down head on first, you know, balls to the walls, not to the sack, you know. However, I did eventually manage to take him down using this strat, which is a little bit repetitive, so I will save the fun for some of the actual fights involving movement and skip ahead a tiny bit. But it was literally just throw one knife, deal damage equivalent to 1/25 of his HP, wait 9 seconds, rinse and repeat. So yeah, I will keep the fun stuff for the video and cut out the boring stuff. And unfortunately, no legendary, although it doesn't particularly matter, we were just looking for throwing knife upgrades anyway, and collecting the glide pack. But this is the worst part of the entire run. Basically, throwing knives do not affect this door whatsoever. I tried everything. I tried jumping around the building, trying to find ways to get in, but in the end, I did just have to melee the door. So hopefully this tiny knife upgrade makes it up to you. Unless it's some groundbreaking discovery, you can't get in there. I tried. And yeah, anyway, over to HQ area. A little bit of NPC tank in here to save me some damage. And fighting this badass took me almost a minute, which is crazy, even with the help of the NPCs. I do eventually take him down and clear the area. We do get another knife upgrade. I'm going to be checking a lot of vending machines throughout the run, because they can offer some good stuff. And then obviously the SDU upgrades are going to be all backpack, because everything else is useless. Next up was Horace's Oversight, where I collected all the contraband in the area and I think it was the only place I did the optional objective just because it wasn't too bad. Strikers only took like 2 hits and then just tickled me with their staffs. I mean, wait, they didn't tickle me with their staffs, I'll make that clear. They threw them, I got hit, but they did not tickle me, I swear. Anyway, badasses took like 7 or 8 hits, as you can see here. Wasn't too terrible, just time again, that's all this is, time. But eventually I do get to Horus, and the knife does a whopping 61 damage. Insane. Could be worse honestly though. I always expected the bosses to be massive time sinks, so having the visual cue at the top makes the slow process a little bit more bearable at least. Seeing 61 is pretty bad, but seeing the bar jump down is nice, giving me a rough idea of how long it will take. Most of the fight though was just figuring out how to efficiently dodge the attacks, but the AI or whatever, attack programming, this guy is laughably bad. Most of attacks, as long as you jump and glide, you just won't get hit. And although he wasn't an issue, the main issue was him spawning like the witnesses and the armatures, constantly just chasing me around the map. And the only attack that couldn't be glided away from was the spiteful witness one, where he just spawns them and shoots them at you. But I just saw as long as you hit him, it just cancels it, so problem solved. Constant harassment from the small enemies, making it a bit of a pain in the behind. I do eventually get a crit though, dealing a whopping 163 damage. But the risk reward isn't worth it, unfortunately. But I do have a tendency to just aim there anyways from playing too many FPS games. But when he's zipping around like he just took a line or something, the number of missed throws probably adds up and gets to like a worse average. But anyway, I do put this video in the top left so you can see the full fight sped up. Future ones, we'll see how it goes. I might split it up into segments as they are literally 1 hour plus grinds. So sped up, it'll probably give someone a seizure. But anyways, the new phase is still junky AI. Just kind of have to remember to dash back before he swings, and then it's just easy enough. And then sometimes when you throw the knife at him, he just trips over and falls, making it pretty easy. After a very long fight though, I do take him out, and unfortunately no legendary or knife drop. Zipping over to Zadras, luckily this can be broken by knives, and then just skipping to the fight after where Zadra gets yoinked like a legendary out of a red chest. You can see I'm almost one-shotting the smaller enemies now. Witness body blocking that one. And I start noticing myself kinda hiding behind the tree root, providing a good barrier and I could throw through it. So I end up just dashing straight down, and that was pretty lame. Parkouring over these kind of different objects, making use of the dash, kind of the movement in these group events. And then this is kind of a common event that occurred quite a lot. I use all my movement skills and I still end up in a compromising situation. In the kill all enemies mission, it tends to happen quite often. Just facing so many attacks all at once, taking a loss and respawning. All in all, this insignificant fight took me like 30 minutes. I think I was pretty happy about it. Leveling up to 6 in the process. Afterwards, I head over to the meat processing plant, and this is when I realised my life is going to get a lot harder. The game actually has level caps. Yippee! I thought I could just run through the game, you know, level scaling and all that, but obviously it wants to make my life a living hell. Went from two-shotting things to basically doing nothing. So it's time to farm. Headed over to Splash Zone, taking out every ripper in the area, because when I was fighting in the first time, I had a bit of an issue where I was getting shot on the sides. And went over to the on-call machine, noticed it was already 3,600 cash per use, which pretty pricey, especially this early on. Only had 13k, which meant after every single kill I'd have to sell everything he dropped. It is what it is though, just another bit of fun, for me. And, anyway, I'll show you the first run here, just to show you the technique in all its glory. All I did was jump over, jump back and wait. And although it did make it a long farm, it was the only thing to kind of guarantee I wouldn't be taken down by mistake during how mind-numbing it was. Just a weight simulator of a grind. No joke, probably the least amount of fun I've ever had playing a video game. Not only would I have to wait for him to run around, but also the knife cooldown. And even if I got an angle, most of the time, couldn't even use it. So, yeah, it was really good. speeding up this part though so you don't have to suffer like me. You can see how it was for yourself. This had to be done every single run, and the guy down there was yelling stuff in my ear and was swiftly removed in the other runs. We do take him down, getting no legendary, but again, not too bothered. Just a nice knife upgrade and the juicy XP. So let's get into it. We're about midway through here, and the skill set I was using started hindering me a bit, so I decided to swap, going more into crit and kinetic damage, but we will swap back around level 26-ish, just to get the Harris Peck skill. I'll explain more a little bit later on, but the basic explanation is just, it's a skill that's going to turn my melee into throw knives, so stick around for that. It's pretty cool, and will give us a lot more options. Ooh, legendary, nice. Look like a gun. It is the lead balloon, so useless, let's go. Ooh, red knife. Oh yeah, colorblind mode is on, so it is a purple. That's just much easier for me to see. But have a look at this guy. 4 charges, 181 damage, spawns 2 mid-flight, repeater, spawns even more? I'm not really sure, I should probably test it. Yeah, I'm gonna slow that down in editing as long as I remember, but I have no clue what just happened. That was way too quick. Just looks like it's spawning random ones and shooting off in like 90-degree patterns. I'm not sure, but it's level 9, does a good amount of damage, good enough for me. But as it turns out, a few farms later, I did swap over to Horus just to get level 10. I got this. It does look worse, but in practice deals more damage as long as I crit, and the knives on the other one didn't home, so they'll be useless. And this is how my skills look at the moment. Swapping over to the challenges, you can see I have completed the crit part and a lot of the Jacob's ones just to show I have been using the knife. And then back to the processing plant, dealing a pretty reasonable amount of damage now. Feels like we're back to when we were kind of before that level check, but it still takes forever, even for the most basic fights. Just to give a little snippet of what I had to go through, and the 25 to 30 hours of footage that I'll probably end up cutting out. Luckily though, the missions like this, I'm not really forced to take on everything, so just running over, I plopped the button down and headed inside the plant. Wasn't too bad after the upgrades I got, so, well, apart from Zadra just being her usual self, being as unuseful as she could possibly be, slowly fighting through each room, but the next major challenge was the Oppressor. Honestly though, like, it wasn't too bad. When he's doing his, like, zipping about, it was obviously very difficult to aim and hit, but for the most part, he just kind of floats there, does his thing, shoots you a bit, not too bad for aiming. But the crit spot, however, is very difficult to hit. When I was using guns in the 24-hour challenge I posted, it was very easy, but for some strange reason, whenever I used the knife, I just could not hit it whatsoever, kept missing. But anyway, like, is what it is, just keep getting the normal hits, whittle him down. But he does deal an extremely large amount of damage. As you can see there, it just absolutely wipes me out. The smaller mobs, the striker engines, just swarming around constantly, doing a bit of damage here and there. Gotta run around and dodge them as well. But keep in mind, not for this boss, but this was my first playthrough fully through the story. So at the same time I'm trying to do this challenge, I'm also trying to learn the attacks and how to dodge them and whatnot. So even though I had done this boss before, I hadn't fought it for so long, fighting all these different attacks. I just kind of blasted it the first time, so yeah, trying to figure out how to dodge the attacks, deal damage, survive, all in one is very difficult. Unfortunately though, I do end up taking a bit too much damage. I do manage to get the rep kit off, but assuming I got hit in the back really by another one, just ended up putting that 15-minute run to an end. Second run though, I take down the first layer of HP, but ended up falling victim to the high damage and damage over time. Not really too sure what else I could have done, since all my movement was down. Probably just better management really. I do end up doing that a little bit later in the game, but for now, I just sit here contemplating life. Happens a lot during this challenge, but wasted another 45 minutes of progress on this attempt. Then honestly, I get a couple more goes, as you can see, ended up surviving on 1 HP and was almost beating him, but just ended up getting taken down. And then we have the 4th attempt, and I managed to take him down with a knife. Obviously, don't know why I said that, that's a stupid thing to say, because what else would I use? But we get a legendary drop too. It is a rep kit, large blood analyzer. Very nice, not going to complain, we do need better gear. And at the area where you find the locust bombs, a little bit further forward, one of the beginning fights, I had the mission to take out everything before I could move on. Now, that in itself isn't anything strange, I ran into a lot of these during the run, and as described before, you know, just a grind. But this one was a little bit different because of this guy. It's a chromatic badass eradication armature. Took me a few attempts, but yeah, as you might be thinking, well, you know, you've taken down bosses, so what could be so bad about a badass enemy? As long as you throw enough knives, he'll eventually just die, right? Well, as you might have caught a glimpse, this guy has a modifier stim pack, and this just provides him with a rapid health regen, and you can instantly recognize the challenge because if you can just keep healing, how am I ever going to take him out? My knives aren't going to do that much damage, are they? So even with all 3 knives, I'm just not even close to the damage needed to kill him. And then, well, granted they weren't crits, but like it wasn't even close at all. And then he just stabs himself and regens, so that's fun. Ended up swapping to one of the knives I've shown a little bit before, that has 4 charges, so you can see how that plays out. Just even after breaking that back part, it's just so close, but I don't quite get to take him out. And then it has the full cooldown, so his health regen just overpowers my damage, unfortunately. In the end, I do manage to take him out after 45 minutes. The footage for this is 45 minutes, insane. But I don't know why the RNG Council decided to grant me some relief for my extended efforts and gave me this run. Started dropping down like expected to stim, but he just never did, so sort of like the part in Doctor Strange where he fights Dormammu, however you say it, he just decides to give up because I just kept hitting him, so yeah, very nice. And then just 2 minutes later I run into this guy. Yeah, and he had the ability as well, so yippee, another 45 minutes, but then made my way through, find 3 more of those devil spawns. The painful journey ends up with Bio Bulkhead though, and obviously there's no way to beat this guy without using the locust bombs. Not only is it required, but just isn't dealing damage to him if I didn't, so kinda I'm not going to count that as run ending, I just have to use that mechanic. But maybe I'm just insane, I just remember this guy being a piece of cake. Don't know why, just found it a little bit easy to dodge due to the very telegraphed attacks and not being crazy amount of HP. And I'm just going to move it up to the top left so you can watch the rest of the fight and also see the main ending on the middle. But I just want to say, like, if you're enjoying this, make sure to possibly subscribe or leave a like and stuff. I'm going to be planning on doing more of this, or feel free to, you know, suggest something, some ideas you might have. It's a huge multi-month project, so any support or comments are appreciated, really. Even if you dislike it, any criticism also helps. It will just help me improve it. But yeah, moving on to our first world boss. It's Psycho Bot, one of the more difficult ones to hit. As you can see, I'm just standing on top of this truck. I was just getting a drink, and I see his bar just gradually going down for some reason. Turns out the NPCs just started helping me, so sure, now they can use guns, that's fine, I'm not going to complain. And he just basically becomes a punching bag for me, so I just turn my brain off, throw some knives, and take him out. Just a brutal domination, and made the hours of suffering inside the last section worth it, which was able to take out my anger. Unfortunately, he didn't drop anything. Then, literally, on my way to the Outbounders HQ, I just have another world boss. This time, though, it's the Exterminator. This fella put an abrupt end to my moment of enjoyment. It even got so bad I tried using the Wild Horn as a shield, but Gearbox already had the answers to my solution and almost killed me there and then. We have to try and clear the arena, ready for a long fight, and get taken out. No second wind, and that was it. Riding up to Sol's Gate though, it steps up the difficulty quite a bit, but as long as there isn't a red warning symbol, it isn't exactly life ending, but 100% reset worthy, as this was one of the spots I went down the most, with luckily my progress being saved each time so I could kind of slowly claw my way through and kill enemies one at a time before I face Sol. However, like I said, I kind of felt a little bit weak around this point, so I did go back and farm the Bio Bulkhead. And you might be wondering, why would I put myself through such a long fight for not so much XP? And that's because of this. The Shokunai is a legendary throwing knife that has 7 charges and can add up to 10% movement speed for each hit, so it has some great potential and I kind of want to try it out. Ooh, legendary. Let's see if it is the right one. If I can find it. There it is. The Shokunai. Let's go. Nice. Didn't take too long. So, as you can tell from my reaction, I was pretty happy it didn't take all day. But the first thing I went and did was test it out. And yeah. Unfortunately, the Shokunai needs a buff ASAP. The ability to hold 7 is nice, very nice, but man, the damage is terrible. Maybe this is an issue because of the challenge and wouldn't really affect normal playthroughs too much, but well, yeah, as you'd be using the guns mainly. The 7 means absolutely nothing when I'm constantly empty and having to wait 11 seconds instead of the 9, and compared to the grey knife, it just does less damage, which is just stupid. Anyways, I did level up during the Rush the Gate mission, I just kind of forgot about it, and I put the point into kinetic damage as it does affect thrower knives. Then after that disappointment, I farmed Splash Zone a few times and got this level 12 knife, just pretty much the same, just not what I was looking for. Choosing to continue a little longer to end whatever day's session this was, I ended up getting this knife. And it's pretty crazy, honestly, well, at least compared to the greys I had been forced to use up to that point. Has a second knife and increased damage, totaling up to 318. Super nice for this upcoming boss fight. So just to give you a little preview of the knife with a sick trick shot, it is very strong. But now is Sol. I have done Sol before, he's the furthest I've gotten in the game with my 24-hour playthrough, which I kind of mentioned before. So I'm aware of his attack patterns, so let's just skip the immune phase. And I was just kind of testing out the damage as long as I don't hit the armor. And it does a decent chunk of HP just for one knife. And he has his little beam attack, just easily glide out of the way of that. And we can one-shot those smaller enemies, which is super nice. And then we just dodge out the way of his charge attacks with a 572 crit, very very nice. And then having those double knives, which is the kind of augment on the knife I picked up, is actually going to be almost 2 times as quick, which is incredible. And as you can see, I kept one guy alive and also one charge on my knife so that I can just one-shot him like I tested and instantly cancel that move. And now for the rest, well, I'll just speed up a little bit until we get to another interesting part. I've kind of noticed he does a kind of sweeping move and a few of them that just end up killing the guy I'm trying to keep alive. And he just spawns 3 more a moment later, giving him the opportunity to do that leech move before I can restore enough of my knife charges. A few minutes in now, and I'm finally down to the next health bar. Mostly the same stuff, but he should be doing his special zone attack now, which will also take out the smaller enemies. There it is. So I don't really need to worry about them while he's doing it, because I'll just take him out anyways. But yeah, this different attack, kind of pop him in between it a little. Got a new move, his slam attack, just missed that guy. Never mind. He just got eviscerated. No! I literally just used a knife. Damn. Getting sloppy. First time I failed it. I just have to wait a bit. Well, actually, is that the... yeah, that's just the one. I'm just gonna spawn it straight away. Doesn't even matter. May as well just start using normal knives to deal damage. Doing well, just grinding away slowly. Very, very slowly. Making use of the new dash mechanic to avoid damage. Not a great use of energy, but I don't know. It's fine. I kind of want to do the vaults to get the extra energy, but yeah, it's not really worth the grind, I don't think. Only not worth it, just the number of enemies, not including the boss, would just be too many. Realistically, as long as I manage it well, it should be more than good enough. Now, just layering the rest with the end of the fight. I feel like I've done pretty good at building trust so far, including this, so the next parts, I can hopefully streamline this video, make your experience a bit better, and not waste your lives having to watch me mob 1,000 times, or, you know, do all these super painful parts. Unfortunately for me, I did spend a month of my life on this, trying to beat it, but it doesn't mean I want to make you guys suffer along with me, so just want to keep it light and fun. After Salt, I'll be speeding it up a little bit, the pacing, and just kind of including the more important stuff and making a good video rather than a recreation of my pain. And yeah, there we go, we have beat Sol, which I beat him first try, which is pretty surprising. That is going to be the end of this section of the game. Now, the next area I chose to go to after Sol was Terminus range, but after a couple missions I had a deeper think about what I should do and planned out my next steps and decided to actually backtrack a bit and swap to Carcadia. The reasons being are 1, the vile enemies. I wasn't aware when I started the Terminus range, but late in the story you unlock vile enemies, which are, to put it simply, almost impossible to kill with only throw knives. So I kind of wanted to delay that modifier as long as possible. And number 2, the best knife was actually in a farm via Ripper Camp and is available in Carcadia Burn. So yeah, it just made more sense to start there. I'm just finishing off Battle Wagon here in the background with a knife to the cheeks, completing a drill site. But I got to Carcadia Burn, progressing through the story, and it is kind of sad I don't have a good place to share all this. I didn't live stream or anything. But yeah, most of the start of Carcadia is just take out reinforcements, eliminate enemies, and if I tried including all of them in this video, it would just be hours long, so, you know, I had to cut it out. But this is when I started feeling super comfortable with throwing knives, and I genuinely started losing the ability to use guns in other games. I just got so used to the throwing knives. But the first notable enemy besides fighting generic rippers was Captain Casimir. He is pretty much the same as a meathead, so after focusing the side enemies that spawned, he was just pretty easy and cleared the city zone. Wasn't a huge challenge, but you know what is harder than a mini boss? Spheres. And Bex. I don't know why you just said that, because you should know I can't use bullets by now. But yeah, turns out these big spheres are more tanky than an actual mini boss. Although these small ones can be taken out in one. But there are actually a bunch of these, and I had to do it again and just including this, showcasing a bit of what I had to go through. I ended up taking almost 3 minutes to do something that usually takes a couple of seconds. People literally like beat this instantly. But done! Successfully completing my sub 3 minute speedrun in a new category. Gonna be, I'll name it Ball Anyficent. But yeah, something I've found funny while taking down the camps further on in the story, the next mission I think, was this just invincible wall. Provided a safe zone. I'm not sure why it's there, but when I die in a second, they do walk onto it, so it's not like it prevents them from being like launched like a hot dog from, you know, the tongs when you're trying to transfer it from the saucepan to the roll. That might be quite a niche thing to say, but anyway, it was just a stupid little thing I found. Next up was Drill a Hole, and this was the easiest fight out of all of them. I wouldn't say this is hiding, as I was in the middle, literally. But his rockets just happened to hit the seats and the other rockets the floor. I was just kind of in between both of them. Plus the Rippers were pretty useless. So even though he was 20 and I was level 16, well, I do have the chat logs to prove it. Caught him in 4K. Anyway, bit of a weird reference there as well. But better or worse, I did beat him and was incapable of saving this little guy. And sadly he passed away, leaving him ready for it, but if you watch his head, I do think he was still alive. Then trying to get to Callus, my low level finally caught up to me and I started running into lots of issues. After this death, I decided it was time to finally spend days of my life farming XP and hopefully a better knife. So instead of farming Splashstone again, I headed to that drill site I mentioned earlier, Soul's Clench. Taking out the Rippers first gives, you know, pretty good XP. And the Grunts have a legendary knife as well, called the Spinning Blade, which actually refunds the charge if you manage to catch the rebound, so it has the potential to fix my waiting issue. Sounds amazing, and yeah, the whole thing was pretty difficult but not impossible. Ended up doing this over the span of 7 real days, obviously not playing 24/7, just between live commitments. Doing many runs, with the goal of getting to level 22. Couldn't record all of this because at this point I had so much footage on my storage device that it was pretty much completely full and I had to keep space obviously for the rest of the game. But yeah, now why would I go through all that effort for level 22? Well, this is the moment I spoke of at the start of this, the great swap. I will finally have enough skill points to transfer from the green tree to the blue tree and reach one of the lower capstones called Harrispex, which basically turns my melee into throwing knives, which is obviously perfect. And it was the only reason I picked Vex over Amon or Rafa, as it will allow me to not just deal more damage but also get second wins finally, and the final upgrade turns into 5. But let's just rewind a sec, because during this farm I got that legendary knife I wanted to try. But that wasn't the only one I found. Yep, I found the knife, the god knife. And this was pre-patch as well, so it was still super OP. The penetrating crit knife, purple, almost on level, final run. It couldn't have been any more perfect really. I was just stunned, I didn't expect to get it. The content gods were just shining on me, I guess. So let's test them both out. When testing the spinning knife, I actually only got one that was level 18 or 19, I can't remember, but it was around that. So yeah, the current level, it wasn't doing too much damage, it's kind of lacking in that area. So I think even with Harrispex, it was taking 2 hits, whereas the crit knife was, or at least it had the possibility to do it in 1. And yeah, the rebound, it seems is momentum based, rather than kind of where you throw it from, which was what I was expecting. So as you can see, I was kind of like just running backwards, and with me always kind of dodging with this challenge, it would just ricochet so far and awkwardly. It was making movement and survivability a lot harder. However, the weight half the time was amazing, but I won't be using it, at least for now, due to not having one on level like I said. And that awkwardness, the rebound, just kept making me go down way too much. and the crit knife regular damage was just better, so I'll probably be using that instead. But yeah, it's like these legendary knives, they do need working on a bit, at least for this I was noticing it quite a lot. But yeah, the crit knife deals good base damage in comparison, which you wouldn't really think it would, since it is a legendary. Just needs a huge buff. But yeah, it's just pointless, and when fighting, I realised the crit knife is practically pointless for this challenge, unfortunately, as it does give guaranteed crits for a certain time, but if I'm waiting for my cooldowns anyway, it just doesn't matter. Like, it's just making that entire, what would it be, like the entire trick obsolete. So yeah, it's not great, but it does have these slight benefits, like when using Harris Pex, it will obviously still guarantee that crit, but when I have multiple charges as well, it's also pretty good. But I do need to level up to make it stronger, just like everything. And for Harris Pex, for more skill points, it doubles the damage output of the throwing knives, so sometimes I'm not able to two-shot the enemies for now, and I do need that skill point upgrade just to be sure I get the kills. And just like that, I am fighting Callus. She was pretty difficult, at least for me, trying to learn how to dodge all the attacks for the first run, as it was my first time, like I have said. But for the most part, her attacks were just kind of dash out the way, so the only real difficulty was conserving that momentum and making sure I still had enough energy. And I did try taking out this little bomb guy on the first few runs, but as it turns out, keeping him alive to use the bombs to take out the rippers she spawns is actually a much better idea. I wanted to showcase this. Like, as you can see, just getting a little bit creative, trying to run around, group them together before using myself to set off the bombs and kill them. It would usually get a couple, and also, as you can see, like Callus, who just takes them out herself. What happens a lot with these bosses, they just take out their own enemies. And then trying to get a group of them together. I miss one of her attacks, take a huge amount of damage, and end up going down. I tried to crawl over before I die, but unfortunately the Harris Pex cooldown takes a moment, and since I didn't tag them, I didn't get a second wind, so when I do it, I just die a split second before, unfortunately. And then just cutting forward a bit, I only realised towards the second phase, like I hadn't been recording this, but yeah. When waiting for the invincibility, I'll just show you the full ending. Which took me around, I think 6 tries to beat. I just kept going down and felt unfortunate circumstances. However, the core strat was just as I explained, dash dodge every attack she does. If I can't dash, double jump and pray, but just bait the rippers, and then yeah. Damage wise though, everything combined still wasn't amazing. Compared to before, 2 times faster at least. Huge upgrade. So the actual fight didn't feel too grindy. Wish I could say that continues, but sadly it isn't all that easy. And just rambling a little bit so you can see this finale. Just that beam attack was so useless, like she would miss by completely miles, nice. Complete miles all the time. But Harris Pex is an actual ability. Wow, it makes life so much easier. Like, just having that extra knife, or having that opportunity to get the second wind, it's so good. This is going to make my life so much easier. And thinking about it, the actual builds with Harris Pex could have some pretty good potential, so I'm looking forward to that, or at least maybe even after finishing this, oh my stutter. Even after finishing this entire challenge, like I might even go back and continue this account just to try and get a cool knife build going. But anyway, enough rambling, Carcadia done. As I mentioned before, I did actually swap from the Terminus range, so you joined me already a few missions in. I had stopped around this point, jumping straight into the crotch, just a piece of cake, as long as I didn't just choose to off myself and fly into the balloons at least. It was nothing more than a regular fight. But gosh darn do the people in the Terminus range love to yap. 1 hour of footage and barely even any fighting. But then suddenly it's like one huge fragment of condensed fighting, a million enemies. So I end up just supplementing my boredom with some sick trick shots. It's one of the cleaner ones, simple but satisfying. It's great. Anyway, fighting all the enemies, I level up, finally doubling the damage and allowing me to two-shot more frequently. Yeah, some huge chunks of fighting enemies with Amara here. It was just similar to the world boss earlier. She just kind of tanks it and I can pop them from the side. It's very, very easy, I guess, compared to what I have been doing so far. And then the hardest boss in the game for anyone, even if you had guns, the reincarnation of God himself, Tim. He had the spore attack, which I had no idea how to survive, and just ended up being some sort of masochistic loop. Dichotomy of life and death, you know. I just go down and then Amara would run over and revive me, and then he'd do the same attack and I just go down again. But I guess it was the nice thing about it is, you know, with knives being ordnances, they just get fully restocked after each down. So, you know, I'd have all 3 knives, I'd use them, I'd go down, and then I'd just have all 3 knives again. Simple as that. So then after Tim started the real pain. The beginning of the vile enemies, the thing I had been avoiding, finally couldn't escape anymore. I do have trash aim here and miss a few, but still. Multiple hits and not even one broken crystal. Without Amara, I really do think this would have been an impossible boss fight, unless I got some sort of ridiculous RNG, like a mega chain of spinning knives or something. Luckily, that wasn't reality, and Amara was here, allowing me to continue the wait simulator. She just took all the aggro, and I just sit there and wait for the second she breaks all the crystals, use my knives, and then just wait again. As you can see, I do finally get it, but watching this back, I was just completely zoned out, and it's just funny to watch. The crystal breaks, and yeah, just 3 knives, bosh, done. No legendary. Might be noticing a longer cut though, and that's because we got a really, really nice knife drop. And this was the main point. I swap away from the crit knife in favour of increased damage and a way shorter 4-second less cooldown actually. 7 seconds was very, very good. Although it didn't last long. After the section with Bruce, I had to go and level up again, this time choosing the other drill site, the Pitted Stain, for literally no other reason than I just needed a change mentally. I just couldn't go through doing the other one again for days, and this was said to be one of the best XP wise. Had no good legendaries, so we are just looking out for a random knife drop. But ended up the farm with level 27, no substantial knife upgrade, and just a couple gear swaps to add firmware and reduce ordnance cooldown, just a little bit more damage as well. For level 27, this is a level I have enough skill points for pincushion, turning the 1 knife into 5, and the insta cooldown going down to 33%, but still shoots a large spread which needs to be used kind of close, like a shotgun. Yeah, after this I headed over to Vile Sanctum to fight Vile Lictor, but ran into the Vile Twins. Yeah, a lot of vials, but yeah, still, even after everything, doing a good amount of damage, it just accomplishes nothing. Like, thank God she is just, Amara's turned up again. Starting to think it was deliberate, kind of by Gearbox as a failsafe for people who are either garbage at the game or stupid and mentally unstable like me who decided to do dumb challenges. But yeah, just spin it up as it took absolutely forever. Let's see. Just the minutes counting up in that top left. Brutal. So glad I did this area last. And done. Now onto Vile Lictor. So I originally was going to show the entire 4-minute fight, but watching it back is actually kind of boring. Yeah, I went into this thinking it would be covered in the crystals and be practically impossible for me to beat. But buddy over here just forgot his own armor. He was the easiest out of every single boss. He had so many weak spots and simple crit areas. For example, when you chop off the hands, it opens the middle section. and it just made him so easy. It was really simple, and yeah, he was the only boss under 10 minutes, so I wanted to include it all, but just not fun to watch really. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for Vile Lictor, who was just kind of there. I don't really know how they could make him better, just add a couple crystals to make it more difficult to damage, but the moveset was also pretty simple. The walls did hit you, they were pretty hard to dodge, but just didn't deal any damage. And grab his bolt. Everything between Vile Lictor and Callus V2 was easy enough, just waves of enemies, with Amara and Zane to help this time. It just wasn't an issue. However, we get a throwing knife cameo from Arjay. Pretty cool. And right as I get to Callus V2, I made one change, just holding an elemental weapon just adds an additional effect to my Harris pecs. Didn't have one before. You can see it does add a little bit of burning. Not sure why I didn't use radiation. I guess I just didn't have one at this time. But yeah, the first run I do go down, take a huge damage from behind with a fireball, and the bomb lands right on my forehead and I fall off the map, not allowing a second wind. Second one, I go down, just the rate of attacks really, just overpowering my healing. 3, 4, and then the fifth try, I do beat her by finishing her off with a beefy Harris pecs. And finally, after many grueling hours, everything on the outside is done, and all that is left is the center. When I'm in the city, I do realize there is one final farm to do from level 28 to 32. Yeah, as you can see, I ended up with this rep kit, a couple of better knives that I want to test, and some gadgets and whatnot, new shield. Just would be great, honestly, after Callus was almost one-shotting me. But yeah, this is what we're going into the finale with, pretty much. I ended up choosing the Merv knife, mainly just for the sake of damage. Yeah, I'll probably end up doing more damage to myself though, because I just keep sprinting into them like an idiot. But just like I was saying, this is, compared to the beginning, just less cooldown. Merv grenades taking out everything. Even if you miss, they still can take out stuff. And then Harris pecs just as a shotgun, point blank, destroying absolutely anything in its path. Yes, crazy in comparison, and ridiculously satisfying. However, just as I thought all was going well, I get caught in this explosion, and I get saved by Zedra. But it's clear that obviously I am possessed by the Timekeeper, and oh my god, I just shot a gun. If I was aware beforehand, I obviously would have skipped it, and it would have been like it never happened, but as this was my first story run, I didn't know. So let me know in the comments, does this invalidate the entire thing? And I'm obviously just joking, clearly it doesn't, that's stupid, but yeah, the Timekeeper does get a triple kill streak with the gun, just as I thought, there was nothing to worry about. Next time though, I'll skip this cutscene. Anyway, after facing countless hordes and pushing my way through the city, having to repeatedly bash my head against the wall with countless vile enemies just blocking my path, I ascended to meet the Timekeeper, dropping into the arena to face the main villain. Obviously I had to miss the first knife, did that on purpose as a show of my complete confidence in myself to beat him first try, but after the first wave of attacks from me, using all my charges, I was actually pretty happy with how much damage I did. Well, it may not look like it, but this was the most damage I had done to any boss so far, at least in one combo. The only issue is this mad lad has 3 health bars, so it doesn't really make a difference either way. Another thing was the surprising lack of damage he was dealing. Granted, this was 15 seconds in, but I kind of expected him to just blast me down in an instant. Now, this is all well and good, but I did mention earlier, I think, but let me set the scene. I spend God knows how long beating the story up to this point, right? This is my first playthrough, and I have absolutely diddle squat knowledge on what this man will do to try and physically abuse my character, and it's also a part of a series of poor decisions made by me because I just decided to start this final boss at 1 AM in the morning. I just got too excited by the thought of beating the game finally and letting this challenge end so to not have to go through this anymore. But looking back on it, at least editing wise, it was probably the most fun I had in any game. I don't know. Although I did just get flashbanged so hard my brain got reset from being tired to oh snap, I think my monitor just exploded and this is the end of my life. But realizing maybe I just need to move back a little so my head isn't so close to the monitor, and again, slowly but surely getting used to his moveset. Honestly, he projects his movements quite a lot, so although the attacks are quite rapid in succession, he has fairly slow movement, like apart from the teleport obviously. It is easy to react to. Seeing him like do these moves one time was almost enough to understand them, and I think I mentioned the word fun one time previously, but yeah, this was just kind of fun. I felt good level wise. I had a strong knife, a good shield, a strong rep kit, a good skill set, and the boss just didn't feel impossible. I started getting excited at the thought of being able to claim I had beaten this final boss first try, throw knife only, and although it never really mattered before, as it was like, duh, this is a challenge, it's stupid, obviously I'm going to die a few times, but it just seemed possible. Seeing his new attacks for the second health bar, I was still kind of confident, and this continued through the entire fight. And it is funny, I started whiffing towards the end. There's just so many different like points. I just started whiffing them and whiffing them, and I was panicking. You can kind of see it and maybe relate, but as I kind of focus on the aiming and this dashing around, I managed to beat him first try. However, as you may or may not be aware, I was definitely unaware. I thought I'd beat the game, but he has a second form. You know, it actually made the story pretty interesting though. It was a cool kind of story event, turning him into a guardian itself. Thought it was pretty creative, but as a bit of a tangent, in retrospect, I enjoyed the story, at least for the first time. Not sure how this game will play out in repeated attempts of challenges. I already heard some big voices complaining whenever I searched YouTube to be like sure nobody had done this challenge yet, you know. Just gotta double check I wasn't taking too long. Most of the stuff on Borderlands 4 seemed pretty negative. For me, I am liking it, although I'm very open to making content on other games. The challenge was fun, but yeah, anyway, back to it. The second phase contained some similar attacks, and it was already fine, you know, dealing with the larger scale. The main crux was definitely the attacks where he launched the spikes, as you can see. Like, he just did that and it was super annoying, or when it rained the energy beams. Just trying to figure out these for the first time, not trying to go down since obviously I can't get second wins. It was pretty difficult. We're just speeding through here, like, just the visual clutter was insane. It's pretty difficult to keep track of. Yeah, just super happy with how well the fight was going up to this point. Heart racing, throwing my knives like I've never thrown them before. Well, I'm lying obviously, throwing them exactly the same as I had for 30 hours. Grind, whatever. Hopefully though, I made it entertaining for everyone. And yeah, this second bar attack, like the main one was just another version of, oh no, the floor's lava, grapple around till it stops, you know, kind of attack. It's kind of creative, but just so easy. Nothing to stress about on the mix-up of attacks here. As long as I just grapple around regularly, it wasn't too much of a threat. However, unlike other bosses, when he's in this form, he can still hit, so I just sneak a few knife throws here and there and continue chipping away, not wasting my cooldowns. Then after this, doing some research, people, you know, struggle a lot with ammo during this fight, but you don't have to deal with that because I have infinite knives. Vex just somehow has some portable furnace making dwarf thing that works 24/7 in her phase pockets, just allowing me to have infinite knives, whittling them away. Yeah, the energy beam attack from the sky, this one, just follow me around. Maybe for short fights it isn't too bad, but when it's long and drawn out, it just cuts off my movement so bad. Like, I was just complaining about it earlier, but it's like every time I turn around, just some of the hardest part to deal with. And another 30-second speed up here, but just so it isn't boring, I'll just explain. Yeah, I just used my movement sparingly. As I said, like the big laser from the sky was limiting it, and since I didn't do any of the vaults, considering the time and energy waste, I still had the smallest bar possible, only allowing it for 2 dashes. If I did this again, I think I probably would have prioritized this more, as having more dashes would have been more bearable. But it is what it is. Like, I just saved my dashes for the attacks that were grazing me. Until then, I just used the classic jump and glide dodge, and the vampiric effect I had for lifesteal was actually pretty nice and a solid way to survive. But yeah, it's the last health bar on his final phase, and within reach. I just have to survive. And from what I can tell rewatching, it doesn't add any new attacks, but just kind of changes a couple to make them more difficult, such as the floor lasers and triple lasers. These are hard, as I kind of come close to dying a few times. Like, I literally at one point have 2 HP and 0 shield, but the final speed up, and yeah, you can just see me hopping about, no threat, and then becoming a massive threat, because yeah, just the visual clutter, as I said, is me just fighting for my life. It was absolutely overwhelming. Started to struggle a bit, trying to dodge the flashing lights. Started to feel my eyes closing due to lack of focus, as it's been going on like for an hour roughly. It's kind of like I was going through F1 training. And then this entire ending was at like 1 to 3 AM, at least the session was absolutely crazy. I'd been awake for like almost 24 hours. But yeah, like I said, just the most fun I've ever had in any video game. I've played Elden Ring, and this fight was more intense somehow. Maybe it was because I had to limit Elden Ring game time, because I just kept rage quitting. But coming up to the final few throws here, also losing my voice for this voiceover. Try not to get hit, and it turns out that the final throw knife was actually not thrown by me. Sorry to spoil it, but yeah, even though I was obviously throwing knives at him repeatedly for that entire fight, yeah, he dies by a Merv grenade. It is what it is. Although it wasn't ultra satisfying, it just completed the game for me. But unfortunately it doesn't stop there. Arjay comes out of the woodwork, but it turns out to be nothing more than a fly in the wind, causing absolutely no issues whatsoever. So much easier than what I just went through. He just kept running in a straight line for some reason. Was able to finish him off pretty easily. Again, pretty unsatisfying because he just dies not by my knife. But it is what it is. It was 3 AM. I'm just happy to be it. Collect the thingamabobby. And with that, it is the end of throwing knives only. Kinda crazy I did it, especially for my first full playthrough. Ended up decently strong, really. Could have been optimized a little bit more. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I appreciate all of you. Subscribe if you want to be aware of my future stuff. Thanks for watching. See ya.